This is Blake Temez with the Blake Temez podcast, where I speak as a Catholic layman to Catholic laymen about missional living, wisdom cultivation, and legacy building in service of Christ and his bride, the Church. Thanks for being here. Generalizations are a funny thing. Without generalizations, we would be exhausted by how much effort and time it takes to describe every difference between every particular part of a set, every particular instance in a set. But on the other hand, with generalizations, we run the risk of overlooking what makes particulars within a set unique. And so they're a bit of a double-edged sword, but we can't do without them. And generalizations play a big part in conversations about manhood, masculinity, and different ways that the church can more effectively reach and form men. Every time I or someone else uses a statement such as men blank, men like blank, or most men, the average men, anything like that, we're working in the realm of generalizations. But we want to be grateful for the generalizations that we do use when they are true. Again, if we didn't have them to work with, then we would have to describe each person, in this case men, according to every single particularity that makes them and not a member of the set in general. But generalizations give us the ability to allude to the most common characteristics of the entire group without having to note every single unique feature of every member. And generalizations in that sense are impossible to do without, and they're helpful as well. When speaking about men's issues or men's ministry, there are going to be times when you use a generalization and someone's response will be, well, that's not the case for, insert an example of an individual man here, whether it's that person themselves, that's not the case for me, or that's not the case for, this man that I know, whatever it might be. Someone will point towards a unique individual as an exception to the rule that you've suggested in the form of a generalization. And the person who raises such an objection has a point, right? If something that is true for the average man or men in general is not true for a single individual, your attention to that other individual, if you're trying to work with them or reach them in some way, you're going to want to take that exception into account, but at the same time, you would benefit if you don't let yourself be distracted by every single unique factor that could exist out there, right? Otherwise, you'll stumble in wanting to address men in general or other subsets, whatever area you're speaking about. But for our purposes, talking about men's issues, if you refuse to use generalizations, then you're going to find yourself unable to say anything helpful at all, because everything will be so up in the air because of how unique each individual is. Again, the uniqueness is real, but there are true like average characteristics that can be alluded to, and that's what we're dealing with in the realm of generalizations. And so that's something that I've thought about. The more I take time to talk about these issues in the church and write about them, I am aware of, gesturing towards men in the widest sense, right? And reminding myself and encouraging you not to get too hung up on the inaccuracy that sometimes presents itself when generalizations are used, but be aware of generalizations that are more or less accurate, and using the ones that are accurate, and just recognizing that the ones that are inaccurate are not going to be the most useful, right? Because they maybe don't describe, the majority of men, even if they're claiming to do that. And so, excluding that one from your lexicon, or from your selection of information that you think is valuable in informing your mindset around these issues. So those are just some general ideas about generalization. This will come up again. There's going to be instances of so-called whataboutism, right, where you bring up kind of a norm or an example, and then the response is, well, what about blank, instead. And just accounting for that and not being surprised by it, and just calibrating your sense of what helpful generalizations are and which ones aren't, and trying to avoid, those confrontations with whataboutism the best you can from the get-go. So in any case, as always, thank you for your time and attention, and God bless. If you're a young Catholic man or a mentor, missionary, or minister who works with them, or even just a concerned figure in their life, a parent, uncle, whoever it might be on the lookout for the release of a short guide that I'm putting together called Brothers by Blood: How to Forge a New Path for Catholic Manhood. In it, I'll expand on some of the topics in this podcast and give you some points of reflection to see about how you can be a part of a movement that empowers men and brings them to their full potential for their sake, and also for the benefit of the church, and by extension, the benefit of all society. So again, thank you for being a part of this, and look out for more information about the release of my guide in episodes to come.